Today on Get in the Lab, we're talking about starting over. Season 2 ended, and I thought, dude, do I have to start all over now? Plus, we dig in a little deeper into the passive income strategies I have to reach my $500 a month goal. More on that in 3, 2, 1. Plato said, know thyself. It's not always easy, but it is necessary. This is Get in the Lab. Welcome back to the lab. My name is Megan, and we're mastering that mental game here in season 3. So, thank you for being here. I'm lucky to have you. Today, we're talking about starting over, because I just went through a whole, starting over kind of thing, and I told you guys last week that I was really thinking about shutting down the whole show and just starting a new show. It was a nightmare. It sucks because you've built something, you put in the energy, you put in the time, you put in the effort, and then all of a sudden maybe you're not seeing the results that you want. Maybe you didn't get what you expected, and so you think, okay, I'm going to start over now because I'm not in it. I'm not established, or I'm not hitting all those marks that other people are hitting, and you start to compare yourself to others, and you think, oh, maybe I should start over, start fresh, or I've made too many mistakes. That really sucks. It's a sucky feeling to have. I think a lot of people, kind of relate to that and deal with that. Sometimes, on a daily basis, it's like, am I enough? Is what I'm doing enough? It can be really daunting. It can be really discouraging. But first, guys, before we get into that subject, because I have a lot to say on it, I want to update you on what happened last week. So we launched season 3 in YouTube. I'm not in iTunes yet. Seasons 1 and 2 are in iTunes, and I believe you can still listen to it because those shows are hosted in SoundCloud. But the new season, because I have this whole new way of doing things now, I'm going to be hosted in Buzzsprout. So like I said last week with the bonus episode of the, Video Branding Lab Rundown, those bonus episodes aren't going to be for, they're not going to be on the audio only podcast because I want you to watch the show. That's the whole reason why we're doing this. Okay. I debate whether I should even have an audio portion for this show because it's a video podcast first and foremost. But we'll see, we'll see what the numbers kind of show. To me, it's not really worth it to have an audio version. But then how can I call myself a podcaster? I kind of play with the idea, but we'll see. We'll test it out and we'll just see. Okay. So far, the main episodes for Get in the Lab are going to be in audio format hosted on Buzzsprout. And right now I'm doing it totally for free. So that's kind of cool if you want to check that out. My site builder for getinTheLab.me before I launched season 3 totally just stopped working. So it was kind of a bum rush to redesign the whole site, just like the night before I hit publish on our first episode, and that was fun. And I was thinking, oh my God, this is a nightmare. But actually, no, it wasn't a nightmare because the thing with websites is that people behind it, no matter how frustrated you get with WordPress or your theme or whatever, they are truly trying always to make it better. And this time they really did. Yeah, they made it a lot better. And so if any of you are using the Visual Composer for your WordPress theme, there's something way better out there. And I truly believe it because it's so easy and it's non-glitchy. And it just works with you. It's very easy to get your stuff up, and you don't have to deal with bugs and glitches and stuff like that. It's called the X theme, and I think I can link to it in the show notes. And they use a builder called Cornerstone, and it's really fantastic, guys. So if you do your own websites and you're into that DIY thing, it was so simple. Like I had to redo all the major pages for Get in the Lab, and it took me like a night. And I was taking my time because I was watching like Disney movies in the background. So it was really nice, really nice. Okay, highly recommended. Another big update. I vlogged about it if you caught it on the YouTube channel. We're going to Podcast Movement. We're going. I know I said that we were going to go and I was a speaker, but really, truly inside I was like, Texas is kind of expensive. I don't really know how I'm going to get over there. And then by just some turn of events, which was really, really, when I think back to that moment, it was like, oh my God, we're actually doing it. I'm actually hitting buy on a car, the ticket, the hotel, and we're staying at the hotel where the event is actually hosted, because it's being held at the Omni, which is really, really expensive. It's a really nice hotel. But I was thinking, I'll get a cheaper hotel right outside of it. But that really, if you ever go to an event or a conference, right, ideally you want to stay in the hotel of that event, because then you're just gonna be there all the time. You're not gonna miss out. You're not gonna have to like, I gotta drive back to my hotel. You can't hang out. I've already done that with like New Media Expo and twice already, and it always sucked to kind of go out of your way to go back to your hotel that's like, even though it's like 10 minutes away or something. So we really were stoked when we found a great package online, and we were able to book our tickets, and it was just this like, oh my God, we're actually going. Oh my God. So I'm very happy about that. And it just reminds me, guys, like sometimes you have a goal, right? And you're like, I really want to go there. I could see myself being there. I could do it. I'm ready to go. I'm equipped. I'm prepared. But the funds aren't there, right? Often money is always in the way. And the thing is, the moment that you say it's too expensive, you're kind of blocking your brain, your mind, random opportunities that are out there from getting to you, from being seen by you. So if ever you have this mountain obstacle in front of you, and money's kind of an issue, or some other obstacle, right? But money's most likely the issue, and it is really quite expensive. Just ask yourself, how am I gonna do it? How am I gonna make it out there? The moment you say, it's too expensive, or, you kind of block off these opportunities that come to you. But when you ask how, your brain starts to do something kind of weird, which is really cool. It starts to look for opportunities at how to do it. So the more I asked myself this, how am I going to get over there? Like, I got to be there. How am I going to do it? I don't have any money. I don't have any allowance to just go to freaking Texas and do this thing. But how am I going to do it? How am I going to do it? And slowly, little things started to kind of pop up. One of them being like offering podcasters headshots while I'm out there. And so if you're a podcaster and you need some headshots, and a lot of you do, even you established ones, I'm like, oh, that not good. We can rock it out really, really quickly while I'm out there. I'm going to bring some good equipment with me. Shameless plug right here, which you can check out. Because, good photography, you need that. You just need it, okay? This is 2015. So I started to do that. I started to do other things. We had the workshop. And so eventually I had the funds. I was like, holy crap, I could actually pay for this. So, just look for those openings, right? Okay. So I'm really happy. I'm super excited. Both me and my sister are going. And a note about my sister, she's a college dropout, right? Because she figured out that her dream of owning her own coffee shop doesn't really require college. College. I'm nothing against college, okay, but you can see our conversation about college right here. But she realized that it wasn't for her, and I'm really very proud and very kind of enamored, because she's going to be turning 21 when we fly out. And instead of throwing up on her 21st birthday, she's going to be hobnobbing with the best of the business in the podcasting world, my friends in the podcasting world, who are just really hardworking, genuine individuals. And I can't wait for her to be surrounded by that kind of influence at 21. All right. What was I doing at 21? Yes, I was in a slimy, skeezy bar with a slimy, skeezy somebody else, and then passed out, and then woke up and felt really, really shitty. So she's miles ahead of a lot of us who are turning 21. And oh yes, this just in. I was asked to speak at Podcast Movement, submitted my proposal for a talk. It got approved. Awesome. And then I was like, what am I going to talk about? But I'm happy to report, guys, that I just finished the whole thing, the whole rundown yesterday, and it's ready to go. All I have to do is create some badass slide decks for it, your presentation and stuff like that. And I got a little hint from Pat Flynn's episode on slide decks and stuff that you can check out in the show notes. How to improve your presentation, right? Really focusing on images and less bullet points, and really taking advantage of what you're supposed to do there while you're on stage, and not fumbling and putting people to sleep. So I'm very excited about that. Podcast movement, it's in the books. We're ready to go. The itinerary is set. And we're actually staying on an extra day to visit some of the sites of Texas. I'd never been to Texas before. So it'll be nice to kind of chill out. And from what I hear from other conference goers who go regularly, you need that extra day to just kind of recover, relax, and then kind of fly back home and do that sort of thing. So I'm really excited about that. If you don't know what Podcast Movement is, it's the biggest podcasting conference ever to date. It started last year in 2014. They had over like 600 people come out. I expect it to be probably as big or bigger this year. It's going to have workshops, celebrities. What else do we have here? Talks on podcasting like mine. I'm going to talk about 3 ways to add video to your podcast and how you should do it. Just a little plug there if you're going. It's going to have an award show, which is pretty cool. I'm a part of the Podcasters Academy over there, so I'll be voting on shows and putting my input and sharing my input on. I don't know if I'm supposed to share this information. Probably not. So I'll just say I'm a part of the Academy, and I will be voting on people's shows. There's going to be a podcasting Hall of Fame, plenty of parties, and a lot of networking with just dope ass people. So I can't wait. I'm very excited, and you bet I'm going to be vlogging about it. All right. Okay. So let's move on to the next segment. What are we at? 12 minutes. Okay. Good. Okay. All right. So we're going to talk about starting over. But first, I want to update you guys on the experiment, right, to create passive income. So in season 3, like I've been telling the lab rats, if you're new to this show or if you're just joining us, every season I'm going to be running an experiment about some kind of online business venture. This season's venture is creating passive income, because I've always thought about creating this sort of passive income, which is through building niche sites. I'm going to say niche because I don't like saying niche. Okay, just deal with it. Niche sites. So my models were like Pat Flynn. That was the big one. The big one was Pat Flynn. He was all over the world with the niche site tool. And so I was like, that looks really interesting. And then it looks really, really hard and confusing. So I kind of put that to the side for a long time. For like 2 years, I've had this in my mind. And just recently, with Kevin and I getting married later on in the year, I'm now motivated more than ever to create a sort of passive income that doesn't come from freelancing. Freelancing is how we've been monetizing everything so far, and freelancing is it's not where I want to be in the future. It's tiring, and I'm getting too old for that. I want to utilize the skills that I have, that I love and love to do. I can do freelancing. Anybody can do freelancing, but it always takes up a bunch of your time, and it requires you to step out of your home. And I like being here. I like being in my little lab. So that's where I want to be. Like I was saying, I got off topic there. I'm now motivated more than ever because Kevin and I are getting married later in the year, and I don't want to feel like a roommate in my own damn house. So if we can liberate ourselves from having roommates, that is going to be top notch. That's going to free up a lot of kind of space in my mind as far as stress and weight on both of us. So it's really important for us to not rely on that income, and for me to actually bring that in with something that I'm actually really passionate about. So that is the experiment. We're doing niche sites. I've been looking into niche sites for a while now. And like I said, Pat Flynn was my biggest model. So I went there first. I read it. I got overwhelmed. I didn't really get what happened. There was sort of a disconnect between his first niche site and niche site duel and like 1.0. And then there was kind of a disconnect of what happened with the niche site Duel 2.0. So I started to look for other content creators who are creating niche sites and maybe have something to share and teach. And I actually found 2 other people who've been really, really helpful. I can't think of the other one right now, but I'll have it in the show notes for you if you're interested in that kind of thing of building a niche site and building passive income. One of them is nichesitetools.com. And another one, I forget, but it's also very good. Like I said, I'll have it in the show notes. So what's the first stage of niche site building? Well, it's a keyword in a niche that, I like to create content about that can be ranked in Google on the first page, so that I can drive traffic to it and generate passive income, sales through affiliate programs and AdSense. That's basically what a niche site is. Like at the bare bones, that's what it does. It's specifically designed to create revenue that way by use of affiliate programs or AdSense. Okay, so that's my goal. So I've told you guys that I've read through Pat's thing and that it didn't really work for me. His delivery of the information. I'm sure it's all correct and all that stuff, but it didn't really register with me. Even after going through it for a good 2 weeks through his site, I was just like, I don't really understand it until I visited those 2 other sites by just Googling. I'll be documenting my whole process about how I go about it, and that way maybe somebody else who wants to learn about niche site building and maybe doesn't get it from these other guys, and maybe they'll get it from me. I don't know, but I'll be documenting it and posting that a lot later, probably at the end of season 3. Okay, so if we actually make some stuff happen, okay? To update you guys and to kind of break down a little bit what I've been doing for the past week, there's a couple tools out there to help you find this glorious keyword that I was talking about, right? That you can rank in Google and make money from it and all that stuff. So the big ones are Market Samurai and Longtail Pro. So I've used both on the free trial period, and I can say that they're both great. One seems like Market Samurai seems like you can manipulate more things, but for reals, like it's really just personal preference up to that point and affordability if you decide to move forward with one software or the other. So I think one is like subscription based and one is like a one-time fee. So I would probably choose the one-time fee one. Okay, so right now I've found a niche along with a long tail keyword that I can rank in Google for, which is pretty exciting. I was like, okay, cool. And then I actually got a domain name that falls in line with the niche and everything like that. And it's actually keyword laden. It's not the keyword, but it is keyword laden, which means that there are keywords in that domain. So I'm not going to reveal it here on the show because I'm just going to tell you my process about what I'm doing. I've just read from other bloggers who do this kind of thing that you want to keep that on the down low a little bit. That way nobody tries to derail your efforts, which is, it's kind of a shame. But if that's the reality and that's what people recommend that you do, then I'm going to follow that. So I won't be revealing my niche site. There really is a choice whether you're making a niche site or not, to choose a keyword-laden keyword or to choose a branding type of domain, right? So keyword-laden domain versus branding domain. So Twitter.com versus socialmarketingplatform.com, right? So there's a great video on how I made my decision on which word to choose, basically chose the keyword-laden one. But you can kind of make a decision for yourself. I can't post the video here, but you can see it in the show notes. Okay. So the next step, I've got the domain name. I've got a couple of other things going. I'm on WordPress. I'm using Thesis Theme, because I had it for, through a previous purchase. And the next step is to create 3 to 5 articles that just explain what the site is about. That way, Google starts to index what your site is about right away, right? So even though the site is not done like design-wise and it doesn't look fancy yet or anything like that, you want to get those articles out there so Google can start running through your site and registering you as, this key term, and this is where I'm going to categorize you. So that bit of information right there blew my mind because I was always thinking like, oh, it's got to look perfect before I launch. And that's really not the case. So, purposeful, SEO-minded articles go out first along with all of your, SEO plugins and all the right plugins that you need for your site, and hit publish on those as soon as you can, even though the site's not done. So that bit of information is, I think, crucial. So to balance this experimental work of, niche site building, which can take up just all day, I have other duties. I have other things to run, especially with the photography business. So I'm dedicating at minimum 1 day, at max 2 days, right? So 2 days out of the week, doing really hardcore, purposeful, meaningful execution, whether it's research or writing or stuff like that. I suspect that I'll get where I want to be within about 3 months. Not making money, but have at least a site that's up and running, that's indexed well, and that have everything kind of up, and then just from there refining things. But working 2 days out of the week over 3 months should be in good shape. And then I actually get to check in with seriously an SEO or niche site coach. So that's really awesome that I have that in my back pocket. So that's what's happening. That's what's happening with the experiment, with the niche site building. My goal, like I said, is to get to $500 a month through AdSense and affiliate programs. So we'll see what happens. I'm excited. So let's move on to the last segment. We're in our last segment here. If you guys didn't know, I'm dividing the show up into segments. I think it's a smart way, if I don't toot my own horn, I think it's a smart way to separate and organize your content so you're not just like blah, 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 blah. So last segment, okay? All right, we're talking about starting over. So let's talk about this idea of starting over. When I thought about shutting down the show, I was thinking my efforts weren't bringing the results that I wanted. What were those results? Now that I think about it, it's kind of a blur, and I was really just letting self-doubt and burnout mask its way as what I'm doing is not effective. What's the point and all of this stuff. And really, a lot of that was I was just burnt out. I was burnt out. So if you didn't know, seasons 1 and 2 were daily. Season two was daily video content. Seriously, 7 days out of the week. And every time I told that to somebody, they're like, mm-mm. They were like, mm-mm. Because they knew that it wasn't sustainable. And it wasn't like I didn't know that it wasn't sustainable, but I wanted to see, and I wanted to push myself. And at the time, pushing myself was kind of the only way for me to find out, right? Sometimes you just got to do. So it was great. I don't take it back at all. I think that there are benefits to putting out daily content, but of course it's not sustainable. So take it from somebody who really did want to put everything, and you can only give everything for so long, right? So season 2 lasted 3 to 4 months or something like that. Okay. So I was thinking, what was I thinking, man? What was I thinking? I had forgot the whole picture, my picture of, metrics and, these comments that would derail me during that time when I was very vulnerable. And I thought, man, if I can get derailed by these little tiny things, then this is kind of good, because then I get to develop a thicker skin and know how to get myself out of these little personal self-doubting, self-limiting belief systems and patterns. So everybody's going to go through this sort of up and down, ebb and flow, love and hate sort of relationship with what they do, even if they love it, because the line between love and hate is really thin, right? So I'm very, very passionate about what I do, which is why I think I burnt out so hard. And it wasn't even that hard. It was like a week, but when you're in it, when you're experiencing it and feeling this emptiness about it, that week can seem very, very long, very unbearable. So it was good that I went through that. It's always good, I say, to kind of go through this breakdown of your, you peak and you're like, and then you come down because you need to humble your ass. So it was great because I developed a thicker skin. I developed new sort of strategies to combat that sort of thinking pattern, right? Or that sort of that dip when you have the dip, right? So I think that sometimes when we think we're not getting the results that we want, and I'm not even sure what I was thinking those were at that time. You're not making money, right? That's a big one. Or we're not getting some fantastic feedback or something like that, like landing a high paying client or speaking at a grand venue or something else that says I've made it. If you say you've been doing it for a while and you haven't had that feedback that says I've made it now, which I don't think it ever really comes. We have a tendency to throw out everything we're doing to start over because, for one thing, it's painful to keep going when you haven't had the success that you want, right? It is painful. And so while it's actually true, to start over, I have to start over again. What you're starting over with is not, just starting over, starting fresh. I thought I needed to close down the show, start a whole new show, when in fact I just needed to shut down these old ideas and old beliefs. This old person that I was, that person needed to, in a way, die to make room for this new person that was being born, right? So I kind of like to make the analogy of like, what's a good analogy, but maybe it will creep you out. A snake, right? A snake. So a snake will shed its skin every whatever. And in the moment when it's shedding its skin, it's really vulnerable, but all the while it has become stronger, it has become bigger, it has become smarter, maybe, right? So I think this happens, I believe that this happens and is going to happen in a cyclic type of way. You're going to peak. You're going to get a lot of accolades, a lot of recognition. People are going to say, you're on fire. You're 3 feet from gold, that sort of thing. And you're peaking, you're plateauing, and you feel you're there. You're like, okay. But then you need to shed this old version of yourself. And so begins the dip. Begins the dip and the self-doubt and the curling back and curling away from what you were doing. And you feel very, very vulnerable, very weak at that time. But in actuality, you are a lot stronger, a lot smarter than you were before. You're evolving past your old self. But there is a transition phase. There is always a transition. You can't just go from great to great to great to great to great. There has to be this ebb and flow of things. That's just the way of nature, right? So during that time, when you feel weak, you feel very, very vulnerable, just be quiet. Be quiet. Don't hit publish. Don't talk to anybody who can, kind of derail you more. Just be with people who love you and friends and family. Listen to other people's content. Curl into your shell until you kind of recover, right? Until you grow into that new body, that new self. A sort of rebirth happens, phoenix, right? So yeah, I think that's what happened with me. I'd like to think that's happened with me, a very kind of glorious analogy, but when I look back, it didn't feel like that. It didn't feel like that, but the point of that is to reach out my hand and be like, yes, I know the struggle is real, okay? So I know what it feels like, and if you're going through that, and for some reason you happen to listen to this episode, which is kind of uncannily very possible if you are feeling like that, because the brain has a very cool way of presenting opportunities and things to you when you need it to, right? All you have to do is ask, really. So when I was going through my little, transition phase of being reborn, I started to listen to other people's content. And for some reason, all the topics that they were talking about was having to deal with self-doubt, was having to deal with keep going, getting that mental game right, a lot of mindset stuff. And it was like they made that specifically for me on that day when I was feeling my worst. And it's amazing because I think the brain and the energy that you put out there is weird. It just happens. But I asked to be guided from this transition. I was like, please just get me to the other side. I know that there's another side, but just get me there. And a bunch of other things like talking to Kevin and stuff like that got me there. But you have to ask. You have to ask. That was today's episode, guys. I hope you enjoyed that. Next week, we're going to talk about, what are we going to talk about? Get out my calendar. When you feel like quitting. Okay, so similar to what we just talked about right now, there are a couple of things that you can do during that transition phase if you have a show and maybe it wasn't working out for you, but there are a couple of things and ideas that I want to share with you so that maybe you can get your wheels turning as to, how to move forward. That's the worst part. Like amongst this feeling self-doubt and feeling like you're not worth it, a lot of that comes from this fear of not knowing where you're going and feeling stuck. So when you feel stuck, I created an episode about that, and we're going to talk about that next week. Okay. So with that, guys, I'm going to leave you until the next episode, and like this episode if you did, subscribe to the channel to become a lab rat today. And don't forget to read the description, okay, because that will have a link to the show notes that are really, really well done. I mean, for my standards, okay? Show notes for today's episode where we talk about podcast movement, talk about the niche site building stuff updates, and then we talk about the starting over thingy, and a lot of good resources for you there. Okay, so again, thank you for watching. Thank you for being here. I'm lucky to have you. Once again, my name is Megan, reminding you to get in the lab. We'll see you. Peace.